will take about a half an hour of your time. I want to go through and explain what has happened in Penfield from a development perspective through 2015, and then let you know what's going to happen or what we anticipate happening in 2016. And with that, I have my co-worker and mouse extraordinaire mover. So, Zach, why don't we get started?
We all have a role.
That's right. We all have a role. We're a team. So as I said, we're going to talk about the accomplishments and projects of 2015. We'll go into 2016 and what we think is proposed for next year. For Jack Best's benefit, we're going to talk about some of the most visible and vacant properties in Penfield and what's happening there. And then I'm going to give you an update on some of the plans and legislation that's occurring in Penfield. And then we can do a question and answer. You can ask questions throughout the presentation if you'd like. I have no problem with that. And with that, why don't we start in? Go ahead. Some really good news. The YMCA added a 20,600 square foot addition onto the rear of their building this year. As you can see, it provides additional wellness facilities as well as a doctor's office. I believe the U of R Medical Center has a doctor's office there now. So if you're running on a treadmill and don't feel very, very well, you've got somebody right down the hall that can take care of your needs. I did put, actually I put this one in this morning. And this is probably the most important of all the photographs on that page because that shows the contractors installing the footers for the stanchions for the light pole that's going to go in there to hold the signal light. So hopefully that'll be done before the end of the year. I know the state DOT has certain criteria as to how long it takes to cure these footers, these concrete footers, but hopefully that'll be done by the end of this year and that light will be operational. So that's a really nice thing for the community to have in place. We just finished a 10,000 square foot addition on the building at 2000 Empire Boulevard. That's owned by Fred Rinaldi. He did a new fascia over the entire building. It looks really nice. It blends in now with the dialysis center that he just built to the north of that building. So he's taking on the responsibility of refurbishing Empire Boulevard one building at a time. You saw that Panera finished their building this year. Last year I had a photograph there of a site plan and not much else. This year the building's in place and it's been operational for several months. It's part of that entire complex that was owned by the Farish Company many years ago, and we are nearing completion on the development of that site. There are just a couple of vacant spots left on that property. This is Mr. Shaw, finished his building, his 6,000 square foot building on Penfield Road and Sanders Farm Drive. He is looking for tenants, so if anybody's got an urge to lease from Mr. Shaw, you're more than welcome to call him. This is the G and Greco building. Dr. G and Greco relocated out of that 2000 Empire Boulevard building that was just refurbished and built his own new building on, I think it's a 3,000 square foot building on Creek Street. And I think that's the last infill parcel on Creek Street. He is operating from that site at this time. So this is an update on South Point Cove Apartments. I believe we have, of the 9 buildings that are under construction, plus the clubhouse is completed. You see that here. These buildings down here, I think there are 4 of them that are under construction. One has been occupied. The other one's getting ready to be occupied. There's also a condominium building over here in the back, closest to the tree line. That's under construction. It's kind of an interesting situation because there's an eagle's nest right behind that building, about 300 feet behind that building, and the state requires, as a condition of their permit to build there, that they construct up until the end of December, and they can't do any more construction to the exterior of the building until September of next year. So they've got 4-month windows to build this building over the next couple of years. So they did get the footers in this year. They've got another month or so to work on that site. They've got to stop until next September during the nesting and fledging season for the eagles. It's kind of a unique situation in Penfield, but you can see the buildings are under construction, some are occupied, and it's moving right along the way we hoped it would. I'm anticipating probably in the next year or so they could have the entire project under full construction. Right next to it is the property. You heard a little bit about the docks being expanded up here at South Point Marina. They were approved. The docks are in place. And in addition to that, there is a 3,700 square foot 2-story building. The first story is dedicated to the marina itself as a clubhouse. The second story is going to be a public restaurant. We can all attend. It's going to be called the South Point Grill. It's owned by the gentleman that owns Murphy's Law and Magpies and several others in Rochester. This is his first venture into the suburbs, and I think he's been very pleased with the effort to get his property approved and developed. So they should be open, I think, sometime right after the holidays. As many of you know, Marcs Pizzeria came to the town early last year and asked to demolish this particular building. This building was not an historic building in the sense that it was designated, but it did have some history to it. There was a young lady who was an 11-year-old whose brother ran a printing press and newspaper here during the Civil War. He was drafted into the Civil War and left her to run the newspaper for a few years, which she did, and actually achieved a lot of recognition and received a lot of awards from various journalists throughout the country for doing that. Not too many people know about her. Her name was Little Nellie. She's well known in the historical circles, but not by the general public. Mark Crane thought it was important to give her some notoriety, so on the building he actually put a plaque in her name here. You can't see it, but it's there. But on the inside of the building he donated an entire wall to her history. And I think there were more people that knew more about Little Nellie the other day during the grand opening that knew in all the last 150 years about her. So kudos to Mark for recognizing the need to maintain some history in Penfield. The building is now open. It opened up the other day. So it's a nice addition to the Four Corners. There was a lot of energy going into that to figure out how to get a modern building to look, something that blends in with the character of the neighborhood, and I think we got there. This is the building that's immediately north of Panera. This is going to be a 6,000 square foot building with 3 tenants. The first tenant is going to be a Moe's Southwest Grill. The second one is an AT&T phone service center. And the third one is a hair zoo. And that'll be almost nearly completed probably by the end of the year. Can't see it very well. It wasn't a great picture, but this is the new Autozone. It took over the old restaurants, and there were so many names on those restaurants I can't even keep track of them anymore. This was an interesting project because, as you remember, the old restaurants were elevated because of the floodplain issue at Panorama. This one is also elevated. It's not elevated to the level that the old one was, but in addition to the elevation, the staff had to learn how to enclose all the entryways in the event of a flood. So there's an annual review by town staff to them as to how to close that area off in the event of a flood, and we do get spring flooding down there, as you all know, on a regular basis. This is the new orthodontics building. This is on the west side of the intersection of Harris Wayland Park Road and Penfield Road. If any of you remember Gordon Griffin, that was his home at one time. That's gone now. And they're ready to open up. They've just finished up the landscaping, and they should be opening fairly soon. It's kind of interesting. We had last year, I think we had 3 or 4 applications for orthodontic and dental offices. One left. The one doctor moved out of town, and I think we have 2 coming in for next year, and we'll talk about that in a minute. This is the DHD Ventures office building. It's a 3-tenant office building. It's not yet completed, but the first portion of it is here. That's Preston Orthodontics. That's one of the offices that we approved this year. The other 2 are still under construction. These are adjacent to the Doodlebugs Daycare Center. And just immediately beyond that point, there is another dentist office proposed to be constructed immediately adjacent to them. So Penfield must have some real cavity problems or something. It's like we live in England or something. I don't know what the problem is, but evidently everybody has a lot of dentistry here that's being taken care of. This is really important. It shows you the overview of the 4 corners on the southeast quadrant. This is Olga Boychuk's building and Ron Baruti's buildings, Incognito's here. This is really important because the town was able to secure the ownership of these properties earlier this year. We did go in and fill in some patches and did some paving here just a month or so ago. They did some striping. The intent is to go in the springtime and actually mill the entire area, resurface it, get some new drainage in there and some landscaping and kind of clean it up and make it a viable area for the businesses in that quadrant. It really has, it's been a godsend for a lot of us because there's been a lot of in-house fighting down there as to who's parking and whose spot. It's just been really miserable over the years. Luckily, we have people down there now that appreciate the value of parking in one spot and going to another business because it may ensure that they have somebody coming to their business as part of that process. So we've got some good people down there trying to work towards a good end, and hopefully next year we'll get it all resolved and get it cleaned up. In addition to that, we have talked to the lady, and I got to thank Mike Quinn for that. He was very instrumental in talking to the lady who owns the Thai restaurant, the Pattaya's restaurant, and she is willing now to let us open up that area so the parking lot now extends into her parking lot as well. So that is a big, big plus for that neighborhood. All right, that's mainly, before I leave 2015 though, I do want to talk about Heathwood because I saw you here, and I have to apologize because I did have a photograph and I didn't get it in time. Heathwood is going to be adding on a 15,000 square foot addition to their property this year, which we're really excited about. Provide additional services for our elderly, so that's a great project coming up, and we'll talk probably about that in 2016 once it's completed. All right, 2016, if some of you have driven by Paychecks in that area down there on the other side of the street, you'll notice that there is some activity taking place. This is a 6-story, 75-room hotel, Hampton Inn, that's being constructed. They were in the process of completing 2 other hotels in their regional district, and they focused on completing those hotels before they started in on this one. They did get some footers in last year and then kind of let it sit dormant for a while. It is now under construction once again, and hopefully we'll have that done by the end of 2016. And Baytown, it's an exciting project this year. It was languishing for a couple of years. The board did give them approval 2 years ago now, I believe, to continue on with the development of Baytown. You can see now they have done the site work for the new Walmart. The Walmart's going to be 186,000 square feet. It is behind the existing Walmart. It's kind of interesting because you can't really tell from these pictures, but these are berms that surround the property where the Walmart's being constructed. These berms will protect these neighbors from the visuals of the building and the parking lot and everything else. And it was funny because we were concerned that it may not be high enough, but when they started moving earth, they determined that they had more earth to move than they thought. And they came back to us and asked if they could make the berms higher, and of course we said absolutely you can. And they're going to be landscaping those berms and putting fencing on them as well. So that project has to be completed, I think, by the 1st of August in 2016, so they're moving along fairly quickly now. In addition to that, there's another building that's almost near completion. We know it as Building O because they've got so many buildings going up there, they put through the entire alphabet on them. But if you were to know where Salads, Etc. is, in this new area that they just constructed recently, what the old Tops building was, this building sits right at the very end of that street, and there's a green space. All this will be like a village green area to allow people to have lunches and go out and just walk around in the grass in their toes if they want to. But that'll be near completion fairly quickly. That building is going to be a U of R Medical Center pediatrics division, so that'll open fairly soon. And that's one of many coming in. The other one, and I saw that we do have some friends here from urgent care, and I shudder at the very thought of talking about this, but we did receive an application. They purchased the 2 houses on the east side of Harris Wayland Park Road. Here's Rengen over here. They want to demolish those 2 homes. They want to build an urgent care center at that location. When they came in to see us, the first question is why? We already have one. We didn't think we needed a second, but evidently the U of R thinks that they do, so they're currently before the planning board. They have not received approval yet, or they have?
Public hearing was last night.
Public hearing for it was last night, so if anybody has any comments or concerns, get them to Zach and he'll relay those to the planning board right away.
Zoning board next week.
So that's the orange house on the corner?
Yes, yeah, that's that one right there. That one and the one next to it. This is a therapist office right here. It's the old, it's called Interact. It was the old Fran Hirsch building.
Jim, could you elaborate on the concept of the access road?
Yes, it's a good point. There are 7 properties adjacent to this, and at the end of it is the Summit building, the Summit Credit Union. When these properties were rezoned by the town board back in 1991, it was anticipated that they probably wouldn't turn over very quickly. The board required that once the last house became a commercial use, that all the property owners in that, once they were commercial, they had to go back and construct an access road from Harris Wayland Park Road down to where the Summit is, so they could tie in there so you could have internal access to get out to the plaza and vice versa to a signalized intersection here at Harris Wayland Park Road. It's been going on since 1991, but with this project, it now leaves the Interact site, and Blanca Realty next to it is the only 2 properties that will not have an access road. So they're going to be required to install that access road. And of course, they're concerned because as part of that, They had to lose their curb cut out on Penfield Road, so they have internal access here to get in. We are now working out some details with them to make it palatable for them to utilize their existing driveways and parking lots in the front, but we are looking to close off those access points to minimize conflicts on the Penfield Road. And we are working with both of them now to do that. So, this is the iSight building. Here you see Summit Federal Credit Union. There's a single-family residence at this site now. iSight actually has a business operating out of the plaza at this point in time. They want their own property. They're going to build this building sometime next year. They've been before the planning board on 2 occasions, one for the original approval. They had a modification that they made, and now that's been approved, so they're on their way.
Layout.
And I think that they're going to start construction sometime in the spring. This is the old Yotini building. It was an old barn that was at 2105 Penfield Road. I'm sorry, 5 Mile Line Road. It's right next to that property is the property next to Marcs Pizzeria. This barn was refurbished a couple years ago, and if you remember, Yotini was in there for a short time. They have since left. The town board just recently approved hair salon, Bangs Hair Salon. Tammy Allen's been in the Four Corners now for 13 or 14 years. She started out at the corner of Woodside Drive and Penfield Road. She's currently at Langford Opticians, behind Langford Opticians, and now she's going to keep that site for the purpose of selling wigs for people who have cancer patients, that type of thing. She's going to move over here. Her business will be over here now for the actual hair salon, nails, and all that business. So she'll be opening up shortly after the holidays are over with. This is one for Jack. This is one of our 3 big problems in Penfield. The 3 gas stations we have every year we talk about. I'm happy to report this year that one of them is going to be redeveloped and is in the process. There's a group called Qdoba. It's a fast food Mexican restaurant company. I can't remember where they're out. They're out of the Midwest. They're also in the Philadelphia area. They have purchased this property from Mr. Callett. It's on the intersection of Bay Creek and Empire Boulevard. They are redeveloping that site. They're adding a 400 square foot addition to the property, and they're going to open up sometime in spring, I believe, with a new restaurant there. That site was totally remediated earlier this year, and it allowed them to go in and start doing the work and purchase the property without any problems. This is a small addition. It's a 650 square foot addition that's going on to the Nothnagel building at 1797 Penfield Road. They're adding that second story here. They're actually adding this area to the back to provide more space for their agents. It's a pretty low intensive operation. There weren't too many modifications that had to be made to it. We're in the process of signing those plans off right now, and I suspect they'll probably get a permit sometime next week to start the work. I put this in here. The town board earlier this year approved a project to allow a distillery, a moonshine distillery at the old church right across the street from Marcs Pizzeria. It's operated by 2 opticians who spent the first half of their lives taking care of people's eyesight, and now they're spending the rest of their lives destroying their eyesight. So. But in any event, Mark, I think, is going to be a partner. Mark's trying to finish up some businesses that he has here. Trying to wrap this Marcs Pizzeria up, and he's got some others he's working on. But he is proposing to install them on this site at some point in time next year. He is going to refurbish the exterior of the building and get it back cleaned up again. They have painted it a couple times, but the paint's just not holding. So he's looking at other options to preserve the stained glass windows, which they want as part of their business, and then paint the church or put new hardy board siding on it to let it last a little longer than it has been. And some of the status of some of those vacant spots, again, this is really for Jack. As you know, the Masonic Lodge is basically empty. There are no tenants on the first floor. The Masons still utilize the second floor. They are looking to sell the property. There are some people interested in it. I've talked to several people. There's one lady in particular interested in it at this point in time. She would like to put an art business in there. She's an artist. She would like to use the first floor for art supplies, that type of thing, and then rent the second floor out for space for artists to come in and paint if they want to have a little studio area for themselves. The big problem that we're running into is that building was built in 1905, and up until this year, it's always been the Masons, so there's been no real change of use. Under the state building code, if you have a change of use relating to the second floor, you need to put an elevator in, and it's going to be very difficult, as Wally knows, because he's been there for the last 50 years. There's no land around that building to put an elevator in, And I think what their intent is to go to the State Codes Bureau to ask for relief from the installation of the elevator. It's going to be very problematic to sell that property if they have to put an elevator on that site, because it's going to be too costly to do that, especially with the amount of work that has to be done on the building to bring it back to a usable state. The second floor is beautiful. I don't know if anybody's ever been up there or not, but they do take really good care of it. It's a beautiful setting, but the rest of the building does need a lot of work at this point in time. This is the old hotel property on Panorama Trail that we talk about every year since 2001. It was the the planning board did approve a hotel on the site. They actually approved 2 hotels on this site back in 2000. Then 9/11 came in, and then they had some problems with the hotel industry. And then they had some internal problems because one of the partners failed to live up to his expectations, and it's been sitting dormant there since that point in time. The property was just recently purchased by John Summers and Pepsi Kettlebong. If you know John Summers, he's an entrepreneur in Rochester. He owns Jasco Tools and several other businesses. His partner Pepsi Kettlebong is a famous sculptor. He did the Nathaniel Rochester statue over on South Avenue. He did the Frederick Douglass and Susan B. Anthony statues over at the Susan B. House. And he's fairly well known. They've partnered up. They would like to do a mixed-use district on that site. And I met with their engineer as early as this morning, who's going to come in with some sketches for the town board to look at fairly quickly here. So that property is under consideration for development, and hopefully this time next year I can take that off of the list and put it up in the accomplishments for 2016. This one is the site at the corner of 250 and Atlantic Avenue. This property is actually under contract for sale, and it's contingent upon getting the site cleaned up. They did spend much of the year taking out materials off the site, remediating the site. It's been identified the fact that there may be some materials underneath the building. They have to identify if that's true or not. They're negotiating right now to determine the cost of removal of the building, and that will be one of the indicators as to how they sell the property and for what cost. And then in which case, Mobile will then go in and remediate any additional materials underneath the building if it has to. And hopefully this time next year, this one will be off the list. But we are getting closer. As I say, I'd say 95%, if not 99% of the soils have been remediated on the site. So we're in a good state with this property at this point in time. I know Mr. LaFawn would like to have that thing leveled tomorrow morning. I have talked to their attorney about that. I'm not sure that'll happen, but we are working towards that end. This is Browncroft. This is in a similar situation. Most of the property has been remediated. I talked to the DEC yesterday. There are 2 test holes that have some material still in them that don't meet their criteria for a clean sign-off. They're going to, they've had a plan submitted to them to finish the remediation. They're proposing an oxidation program to go in and neutralize the materials on the site. They inject several chemicals on the site, and it's supposed to neutralize what's in there. They're close to approving that project for that purpose. Once they do that, it'll only take a month or 2 to finish it off, and then the site will be ready for sale. I have had several people, many people interested in this property for various uses, some not so good, others very good. But again, they're all waiting to see the site remediated before they commit to it. So there will be something going on there hopefully soon. And then Class C Chassis is the real big one. That's the one down across from AutoZone in that area down there. That is a major remediation process, and it's not in the process of being remediated yet. They were doing a pilot program. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. The DEC is now looking at a secondary plan to see how they can remediate it. They were concerned that it was moving off-site. I think they feel that it's been stabilized enough where it's not doing that now, but it's not remediated to this point in time, and I'm still waiting to hear how they're going to finish that up. Hopefully that won't be on our list too much longer, but it's going to be there probably the last one of the 3 that we've dealt with. This one I'm going to leave you with a kind of a funny one. The town board on Tuesday night, a lot of gentlemen come in. Mr. Frank Ambrosio owns what used to be the old Camp A Camo. So for all you Rotarians who remember Camp A Camo was sold to Frank, I think about 3 years ago or 2 years ago. And for those of you who don't remember, Camp A Camo was a children's camp, Kids for Cancer and other infirmities. It was a really nice place to be. It was a joyful area to be in. It's kind of wasting away at this point in time. It's a subject of vandalism and all sorts of goofy things going on down there. He is going to tear the facility down sometime in January, starting in January. He's proposing to put in a doggy hotel there with 80 rooms. Everybody gets their own bedroom. Everybody gets their own play area. They have pools. They have valet service. They have everything you'd want. So if,
4-star restaurant.
I think about people sleeping in boxes underneath the Freddie Sue Bridge, but evidently that's not an issue for doggy daycare. So next time around, I'm going to go into the dog business, I think. But this is proposed. There are a lot of things to talk about here, though. It's very early. The property's not zoned for it. It would need to be rezoned, and at least in my opinion, it needs to be rezoned. They would also have to demonstrate to the town board it's not going to create any type of noise impacts to the adjacent properties. There's a ways to go yet, but it's something that's on the radar now, and we'll see how that moves.
How about the access?
The access?
Yeah.
There is a problem with, Camp A Camo has this problem, and so does the property owner, Mr. Qdoba and Mr. Summers. There is no access point on the Panorama Trail other than through the Thermo Fisher Scientific plant. They have an access point through there. It is cumbersome to get back to Camp A Camo through that plant, and if you don't know where you're going, you could easily get lost back there. We are going to be working with Mr. Summers to see if we can get a direct access point from Panorama Trail back to Camp A Camo, so there's not a lot of traffic going through the plant area. There's a lot of tractor-trailer activity going through there. It's just not a safe situation. Unfortunately, though, it is the one way to get to the signalized intersection at Panorama Creek Drive. So I'm not certain it's going to disappear. It might be used as a secondary means of access to the site, but we would like to see an access point brought out to Panorama Trail through the Dutch Summer property. What else? Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing in terms of legislation. I know it's near and dear to a lot of the realtors and also to people who own property along Route 250. We've talked for a couple of years about the proposed mixed-use development district along 250, and I think you can go up one more. It's this property here on Route 250. The YMCA, actually the YMCA really promoted this because there was so much activity going on at the YMCA traffic-wise. We realized that we were not going to have a lot of single-family residential homes built along Route 250. We do know that we need more commercial development to help offset taxes for residents in this town. We're not going to be building big box development out there. You're not going to see Walmarts and all that kind of thing going out there. We want to integrate development so you have residential and commercial that can live with each other and still get us a little more commercial taxation than 92% residential, which is where we are right now. So this is the one way we were thinking about doing it. We did develop, really actually Zach Nersinger developed.
Oh, it was all of us.
It was a team effort, but he was the one that spearheaded the mixed-use manual, which we have finished and gotten to the town board. The town board is currently reviewing that document. There will be a meeting on December 8th to talk about the document and see if it needs to have any modifications done to it or if the board's happy with it. Once the board is happy with it, we will then move forward to hold a public hearing to address that document as well as a potential zoning district ordinance and the potential rezoning of the properties as well. I would anticipate that won't happen until next year some point in time, but we are to a point now where we've got the documents completed. The boards are reviewing them now, and then hopefully we'll make a decision one way or the other on the creation of this district sometime maybe mid next year. And then I know Mike's been waiting forever for this. We finally did finish our recodification of our zoning ordinance. We did make some modifications to some of the sections that were outdated. We actually, maybe Wally, you remember, we had a milk control officer here that would check everybody's milk before they sent them off to market. We got rid of that position. It's not necessary any longer. But there were a lot of things like that in the ordinance that needed to be changed and upgraded. And we've done that. The town board held a public hearing on September 30th. We got some minor input back from some residents. And we made the changes and sent them off to our contractors at General Code. They are finalizing the details at this point in time, and once we get that done, we'll get it back to the town board. And I know the town board wants to get this wrapped up quickly, so I would anticipate they're probably going to try and get this thing adopted before the end of the year, and in which case we'll immediately have it put on E-Code so you can go online and check it out, both on E-Code but also on our website. You can go in and pull up sections if you need to. So it was a major undertaking because we thought we were just going to push everything into General Code and have them just recodify it, but then when we started checking out how many things had to be changed, we had to go through and update everything, and it took a lot longer than we thought, but it is completed. We just need to adopt it, and we're on our way. And I think that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Can you talk just for a second about the town parks? Is there any plans for, I know we try to encourage the community the use of the different buildings that they have there and so forth. We have the amphitheater and the
Yeah, we have great programs at the amphitheater all summer long, and actually as business owners, if you want to do some things with Steve Orsini to push your business so the public can see it, he does have a program whereby he will take donations and do various things to advertise your businesses throughout the summer months. The parks, we have Harris Wayland Park, we have, where's the other one? We have the shelter. Pardon? Dolomite Lodge is on there, and that's and just for any of you that are going to have parties or something in 2016, the date to start looking for scheduling those lodges is on December 1st. So you've got to go online December 1st, probably at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. because it goes fairly quickly.
10 a.m.
Oh, 10 a.m.? Thank you, Tony. You can start at 6 o'clock, but you won't get anywhere till 10 a.m. But it does go quickly once it starts, and generally speaking, every weekend is eaten up fairly quickly. Parks are well used. I mean, between the active programs that we have for kids and the passive activities that we have, those are all ongoing. We did just update, for anybody who's a kayaker, we just updated the kayak launch down at LaSalle's Landing Park. It's usable. It's not finalized, but it is usable at this point in time. It's a safer situation. We had pallets down there that people were walking on pallets to get into the water, and that's not a safe situation. So we have solved that problem. So we've got some minor revegetation to do down there, that type of thing. But you can use the launch if you want to at this point in time. But we have a great parks program. The town board just authorized the purchase of the Filkins property, which is over on Route 250 adjacent to Harris Wayland Park. We took the house down. We put in a trailhead parking lot. We have ordered signage for that property, and we'll be putting that up fairly quickly. We did just receive a donation of 20 acres, 18 to 20 acres, from the Amish family. They had a big farm over on Route 250, and they gave us 18 acres on the west side of 250. We're going to create a trailhead in there and some trails on that property just north of Northrop Road. And that'll be open next year for additional hiking, that kind of thing. So yeah, we have a great parks program. Yes?
Jim, any lights proposed for 250 and Pembroke Road at all?
We actually have been collecting money from developers for about 25 years for that purpose. We have. Bill Sealer, when he built the daycare down there and all that business down there, we started collecting money. We actually, when we did road improvements to that area, we had conduit installed underneath the roads to run the lines for the light. The problem that we've had is, and as Tony can attest, every February we go to the DOT and we go through our list of concerns with the DOT. That's always on the list. And they do a study every year to determine whether or not it meets their state warrants for consideration for a light. They have like 8 warrants, things like, does the intersection fail at certain times of the day during peak periods, like AM, PM peak periods. And it doesn't meet any of the warrants at this point in time. There's just not enough traffic. I know North Forest, we were hoping that their construction would help generate more traffic to push it over the limits for the warrant, and it's not doing it. So until we can get more traffic going down through there, or if they see a high incidence of accidents or something at that intersection, which we really haven't had, they won't let us put the light in. We actually have money to do it, but they won't let us do it. So
Stop signs by any chance?
there should be stop signs at the intersection.
My concern is, we have a lot of residents that walk, and they walk all over, and that's kind of a concern, because they do cross, and nobody's been hurt. And
There's no stop sign at the intersection of.
there's one there at our place, but not on 250.
Yeah, they won't stop traffic on 250 that way. It's not a standardized device for. Their intent is to move traffic. The state DOT's intent is totally different than the rest of ours. Their intent is to move traffic as quickly and as efficiently as they can. Ours is to slow it down and let people move back and forth safely, and it's two different worlds. But yeah, I don't see a traffic light going in there in the immediate future. Hopefully we can talk about it again next year, but I'm not seeing it happen soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Lee?
Jim, I've noticed the gas station is kitty cornered from Fast Track to the corner of Creek and Browncroft.
Yes.
Valero, it used to be.
It was a Valero station.
I haven't seen a car there now, and
It's now, they took out the tanks.
yeah,
They left the canopy up, but they took the tanks out, and I don't know why they did that unless they were just having a problem with the vendor that's selling them the gas. They don't make a ton of money off the gas, but the problem is, all it is now is a convenience mart,
it's
and,
not going to happen.
and I don't know how it's going to compete with Fast Track.
It's not.
I know, it's still in there, but I don't understand how that's going to happen. And I suspect that at some point in time, we're going to be seeing some redevelopment of that property for something else. There's been a lot of interest on the part of Dunkin' Donuts and Tim Hortons to put something in that neighborhood, but they want to be on the westbound lane. They don't want to be on the eastbound lane because the westbound lane takes you into work in the morning, and that's where they want to be able to grab their market. They're not interested on the east side where you've got the gas station that we just looked at and even the Valero site. It's just not going to work for them for their business model.
Would they go with the Odenbacher quarry?
No, the quarry itself. Are you talking about the sand quarry or the stone quarry?
Mandatory at the lower Penfield.
The old sand quarry on Penfield Road. That was purchased by Amy Tate. Amy came to visit with us several times before she purchased it. And I think her initial intent was to build a single-family residence down there for herself. But then she went down and spent some time on the property for a period of several hours and noticed that there was a gun range next to her. And I don't think she had it in her to have to listen to gun shooting on a constant basis. She did come back to us and indicated that she was not interested. That property at one time was involved in the mixed-use development process. At her request, we've taken it out. She does not want mixed-use development or any development on the site. Her parting remark to us was if she doesn't do anything with it, maybe she'll donate it to the town for a park at some point in time. She did grow up in Penfield. She's a graduate of Penfield High School, so she's got a good feel for the property. But there's no intent on her part to do anything with the property in the near future, if at all. Anybody else? Gotta have some questions. Well, that was easy. Thank you very much.